I'm DJ,
And I'm Andrew,
and welcome to One Shots Tavern.
a TTRPG podcast where we seek out new ways to tell your stories through different systems and games. And today we're doing another Zine Month episode. Man, it has been such a cool month. For those of you listening, my game's already been funded. DJ's is yet to get launched. I have seen so many incredible products during this year's Zine Month, and there's tons of cool stuff coming out. We've already had a couple episodes under our belt. We've recorded with friends of the podcast and new people that were learning about their games and their art. It's been incredible. So if you haven't listened to any of those, definitely check them out. But today we have the honor of having talented artist and world builder and board gamer and board game designer John de Campos, and you are from Terrible Games. And man, am I a huge fan of your games in the first place. I just gotta say, but welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time today and giving me a platform to talk about our new RPG,
Yeah,
or rather, our enhanced, overflowing RPG.
Yeah, so I mean, let's start there, kind of with your history. We like to dive into like where all these nerds are born. You know, like a lot of us have that classic D&D upbringing when it comes to some of these games. Some of us take longer and get into TTRPGs by way of like board games and stuff. But what's your story? How'd you get so darn nerdy?
Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of a dork since an early age because I was a big comic book nerd. Like, just love the X-Men and read a lot of Marvel and Batman stuff growing up. And as far as adjacent things to nerddom, big video gamer. I was actually in a number of video game tribute music bands for about a decade.
That's awesome.
And I have a pretty vast collection of like old NES cartridges and a Game Boy collection and all that good stuff. And I still play some video games. But around the time that I was sort of stepping into my own as an adult, a buddy of mine I was staying at his place because I was going through some stuff, and I couldn't be where I was living at the time, so I was crashing on his couch for about a month, and they were playing Magic like every night,
Yeah.
and they eventually like convinced me to give it a try, and he taught me on this like mono red goblin aggro deck that I like all the mechanics kind of clicked,
Yep.
and I was like, okay, yeah, this game is cool, and then that like it was very easy to push me from there into playing like Dungeons and Dragons, and he did a homebrew that ran about a year, and I was like, this is sweet. I had been working on comic books and stuff at various times throughout my life, and even at one point in high school I had developed like a 2d6 dice game for Pokemon battles before there was Pokemon
cool.
cards. So like I was like, okay, so I can like design my own world. And after that campaign wrapped, I ran a campaign for like 13 or 14 months. That was also a homebrew that I did in 4.5 or 4th edition, I think. And then we all kind of took a break from D&D for a little while. And then during the pandemic, I had been moving towards getting a game up on Kickstarter because of my Magic the Gathering love, because of the Token Terrors game that we first did.
Yeah.
And during lockdown, I was just like heads down designing games and trying to publish more stuff and design more stuff. And that took the form of, our game Volca that we did last year, and Black Mold, and also Repugnant, which, I had been in and out of the RPG space for a while, like as a player and as somebody who'd done a homebrew. But I was friends with this fella named Tony Vacinda, who formerly used to be in charge of a group called Plus One EXP, which I think he has sold it or something. He's kind of stepped down as like the main dude there. But he's still very involved, and he runs the Zine club on the Facebook group. Still like huge part of the RPG community. But I was wanting to work on something with him, and I was like, okay, let's do something for Zine Quest, and that turned into our first RPG offering, Repugnant, the world's most disgusting TTRPG.
That's awesome.
Tell us
Oh,
about like sell the mechanics of Repugnant to me. What's gameplay like?
Sure. So gameplay is, I think, pretty intuitive and easy. Basically, there's two things that you're gonna look at when you're getting your character set up, which is gonna be your kinship and your mutation. You can just choose one of those two things and you smash them together, and they provide you with numerical stats that range between 1 and 3 usually, that are gonna go to these attributes: meat, feet, brains, muscles, and vibes. And you just get meat and feed is AC and speed. The other things I think are pretty self-explanatory: intelligence, strength, and charisma. And what you do is anytime you're tested in any sort of thing you want to do, if you're using our D2 covered in shit system, you're going to be interacting with this determination table that is this flat piece of paper that has all these different zones and icons on it. And if you're doing something that's like an overt action, you're going to flop, which you're going to hold all your chits above the heap is the name of the table, and you drop them on top. And each side of the D2 chits has either has corners that are blacked out that represent points.
Yeah.
They're literally points of a triangle and also points towards the task you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to do a strength check and the check is at a 3 and you drop 4 chits and you have 3 points as an outcome, cool, you basically pass the check, but then you flavor the outcome based on where stuff lands.
Yeah.
And then what we're for the supplement that we're producing for our upcoming Kickstarter campaign, I've taken those mechanics and ported them over to a D6 system where you take a common 16 millimeter die, and we provide you with a sticker sheet with little die faces that you just put over top
Cool.
of other things that make it much more repugnant, compliant.
That was always like the issue with games like the Star Wars game that had those custom dice, right? Like their
the Force
RPG
die.
was super cool, but they had unique dice, and those dice were like always sold out.
Expensive too.
That too, yeah.
So expensive. So giving your players a chance to like just, oh, here we go, we've got stickers to put on it on these cheap die that cost you like $3 is such a great idea.
That's so fun.
I
Thanks.
recently
Thank you.
bought the Star Wars die. I think I spent like $30 on those stupid.
Oh, that's too much money.
No.
Oh man. Now, one of my favorite things, both looking at this project and most of your work with excuse me, with Terrible Games is, dude, your art is so freaking killer. Like, DJ and I both kind of come from the metal scene, and it was like that's where I cut my teeth as a graphic designer. And so like hearing bits of your story and like you still got a metal band right now, don't you?
Yeah. I'm in a band called Blight Beast. That's like a super proggy, like pretty. Yeah, it's. I think it's a high barrier of entry, but I love the band.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm really excited.
It's just like I love how many like of these nerds from like the scene kind of like trickled over and have overlap. It's like getting to know like Adam Vast. I remember when I first like heard his name, but in the RPG circles, and I was like, wait. You mean like the guy from Law Dispute? Like, wait, he's doing. What? And so I was like, this is such a crazy blending of worlds. But I think what's so fun is like the cultural, like the vibes of all these like nerdy metalheads and then like making games now and just like feeling like my people, are just there rather than like, yeah. And here, let me be very clear. I'm not like punching down on anything, but it's like, the tropes of what the game shop like is from like growing up, whether it's like older guys that don't want you there, that don't have a lot of taste and whatever. But like now it's like, yeah, there's like cool metalheads that like give a crap about like the aesthetics, but not in like in a dumb way. They just want to make cool shit, and they like want to, I don't know, infuse it with like the vibes of the things that they love. And so it's like those parallels of like a community that doesn't give a shit and like wants to do cool stuff, and then they're doing the same kind of stuff in another area. I love seeing metalheads in the RPG scene. So I just got to say that for sure. Your art, incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and I think that parallel of like interest in metal, especially given the fact that it's like usually has themes of like high fantasy or like power enacted through violence or monsters and stuff, like all of that tracks with people who are like, oh yeah, like RPGs are cool, also like weird board games that do like insane stuff like Cave Evil or like Kingdom Death Monster, all of these, or Escape the Dark Castle. These are all games that like, they're hobby offerings, but they also are like very, very metal and very like coming from a place of like metal fandom for sure.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about Eat the Reich as well, where it's just like, It's just, it feels like this hair metal album to me, you know, where vampire hair metal.
Awesome.
Yeah, plus,
So
and yeah, that one, I looked at that. I remember I was talking to the creator when I was at Gamma last year, and I was just flipping through the book, and I was like, yeah, this is like impeccably done. Their packaging design, though, and like their like art design when it comes to like color choice and color palette is chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Really fucking good.
Immaculate book.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to meet Will Kirkby when I was there, and I've been following Will's work for a long time. Since like back in the day when I was super into Critical Role, Will was doing a bunch of Critical Role fan art, and I was like, "What is this style? It's so freaking cool." Yeah. And like, I mean, and to get back to your stuff, like I think that when I first saw, I want to say I first saw Volca when that came out. That was probably the first entry point for hearing about terrible games, and just seeing the art on it, and it was just like, this is like doing something to me. This is so, it's like, it's unique, it's awesome, it's cool. It's like it hit a right vibe for me. And I finally got a copy of it, got to see it at PAX and stuff. So I've got to get that on the table still. But I remember just seeing it and then hearing that you were doing, I saw your zine for Repugnant, I think one of the earlier printings. But yeah, you did the call out for like what you're wanting to do with promoting it, and I'm like, heck yeah, I want to see this stuff. I want to talk to him and hear about the project. So you obviously have you put the zine out, you've put out all these cool games through board gaming stuff. There's definitely obviously some very gamey overlap between the RPG scene and board games, but like, where do you feel like you live as a creator in the space of like creating both, right? Like you've had board games that have gone successfully, you have Repugnant that's gone successfully. There's a lot of overlap, but they are still very different types of products. So what's that development process like for you as a creator, or is it completely not separate in your brain?
I mean, recently, like, I've been trying to come up with ways to bring more RPG elements into the board gaming experience. I think that at the end of the day, like, every box that you pick up is a world that's contained within that box. And from an experiential level, like, there's plenty of board games out there that can make you feel like you're a smarty because you figured out how to engine build and you have an economy understanding, and you're like, at the end of this hour-long thing, the point salad parameters say that I have 100 points, so I'm great. And it's like, that's cool. And like, I like having that feeling too of winning a game, but I think that something that's a little bit more impactful, but maybe narrows your audience a little bit, is something that does something that's a little bit more distinct and has a narrative through line where people can look back on it and go like, oh, that was a really unique interaction, or that was this thing where we all were like gasping and we were like, holy shit, I can't believe it. Like, that kind of stuff I think is a little bit more meaningful. So, I think that we successfully delivered on something like that with Black Mold. There are other games in our catalog that like you kind of need to be a team player and infer those things just because you're like a silly, fun kind of person. And I think you can kind of implant that on kind of any board game that isn't too like sterile. When it comes to the RPG stuff, like Repugnant was just, it was kind of inspired by this experience I had doing a live play of a game called Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland, where I was this amoral scuzzbag that just wanted to do as much drugs as possible. And I remember I was playing with a bunch of strangers, and there was this scene that took place in like a morgue where, for whatever reason, my character, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to cut this guy's body open and see what's in there. Because I did like some sort of check that there was like there's something weird about the body. And when I cut it open, he was trafficking drugs. There was all these rainbow like powder inside of this dude's body and like taped up plastic bags. And without skipping a beat, I was just like, yeah, I cut open a bag and cut up a line and start snorting it. And and the other players were these strangers, and I saw like 2 or 3 of them, their mouths just like hit the floor, and I was like, this is awesome. Like this is the best feeling. Like there's not an alignment. Like there isn't this like imposed imperative for us to like be heroes who rescue a damsel. Like we're just being like scummy pieces of shit, and that's kind of awesome. And that sort of evolved into what I want to do with Repugnant, where like binary good evil is a non-thing in Repugnant. It's everybody's just kind of getting through the day and surviving in this very harsh reality and making judgment calls based on the things that are thrown in front of them, and hopefully laughing and having a fun time during it, because there's all this like juvenile fart, burp, zit, booger humor going on.
That's so, I feel like it'd be so cathartic to play that and just like just be the worst version of yourself, but in a playful way. Like it just
exactly.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's the RPG that you are sort of playing in those moments when no one's watching.
Yeah.
You know,
You
know what I mean? Where it's like it's a little it's weird. It's a little unsettling. It's subversive. Like that's the experience. I want to just get people out of their comfort zone a little bit, and let them be a little bit more vulnerable, and like let that weirdness seep in.
Which, like, I mean, I think that really points towards one of the big things we talk about with people that are creating stuff is touchstones. Like, I'm very, very like passionate about how much we can communicate with touchstones, and like the things that we are inspired by that then are a common language for the people that we're playing with. And so for you, I know you've mentioned things like obviously like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you know, I think you said like Toxic Avenger, Garbage Pail Kids, like those kind of things. They all fit in that really like if you take yourself out of the cultural context for what we know them as, like especially like TMNT, they're so freaking weird. Like, why are there turtles, right? Like, why are they went in ooze and now they have power? They're ninjas? Like, it's insane. But like we accept it now as fairly normal. But like what are some of your favorite things that you're pulling from these type of touchstones to really set a tone at the table for like weird being weird, but like it's that whole thing of like when everything's insane and weird, like nothing's weird. So how do you play with that tone setting at the table with touchstones and also like trying to help set a tone for everybody to know what kind of game we're playing, because it's very different.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like social norms and expectations about how people are supposed to perform and or react to certain things that are usually kind of taboo, you know, if we're talking about like so I'm working on an adventure module that would be like a 3-session thing, where they go to a like a carnival. And there's like a roach who spins cotton candy out of mucus. You know what I mean? So it's like you have
so
stuff
nasty.
like that where and like it's disgusting by our standards and our reality. So what I'm trying to do is like to have people displace their psyche more so than they do in maybe a more standard RPG, because they're not really in the real world, but all of these social norms that we all adhere to, at least when nobody's around, or when other people are looking at us, you know, like picking your nose or biting your nails or digging your ass crack or farting loud as shit or burping really loud. Like these are all things that we're told we're not supposed to do. In this world, that is highly encouraged and people get creative, and you see people have like a smile because they're indulging in this thing that's like vaguely forbidden. Like it's not supposed to be a thing that you do or that you opt into willingly. And yeah, in the setting of Repugnant, it's just really about like subverting the norm and also letting people have fun in this way that is different. It just feels really different.
Yeah, and I mean, like in like high flavor and like high vibes games, I think that when people can lock in on that tone, like with those touchstones, with what they see other people doing at the table, those are like the magical moments. I think that like when I wanted to get people into like Numenera, I don't know if you're familiar with, but like I really wanted to be able to communicate the vibes of Numenera, but I just didn't have enough. It felt like to like talk to somebody about it, be like, yeah, it's kind of like this, and like it was just really hard to set the table and be like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. But with something like this, it feels so deeply carnal and human
and it
to be nasty.
Right together.
You know, and like I can't like it's go ahead and be the evil 8-year-old version of yourself for a little bit and just have fun with it. Like that just feels very easy to onboard people to a very unique experience that they're not used to having.
Sure. And yeah, and the other thing for me also is like I'm always constantly trying to find ways for us to stand out, because I feel like in the industry that I'm in with both board games and, you know, RPGs, which I have more plans for other RPGs that are a little bit more on the beaten path slightly. But for me, like it's the same like with Black Mold, you have to hold your breath for the action portion of your turn. And with like Token Terrors, we designed these really weird, like little knobby miniatures and wanted to like truncate a sprawling war game into like a 40-minute experience. We're just trying to find these hooks that can help us stand apart a little bit. And I think that my artwork sort of helps us get there.
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where like I lean into it and I'm always just like halfway through the project I'm like, nobody is gonna like this. Nobody will give a shit about this at all. But what I wanted to do with Repugnant, moreover, in the vein of trying to stand out, is I was just like thinking about how when I was coming up in the 90s, gag humor, Nickelodeon slime, weird booger eating, like zit covered monsters. Like you guys remember the geez, what was it? The Gross Out Gang,
Yeah.
and like Mad Balls, and like all these things that just gravitated around this weird aesthetic where it was like, how gross and zit covered and mutated can this stuff be that like oozes slime and vomits and stuff? And I was like, why is that gone?
Yeah, like the punch in on,
that just
on SpongeBob or whatever, where it was like gross, or like Courage the Cowardly Dog, where like all of a sudden it's like hyper real and disgusting. It's like, why is this on a kid's show? But like that was everywhere, and now I just see all this polished stuff. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate some of the things not being there that used to be there, but like for my kids, I'm like, they don't see any of that.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, so this is a gap in the market. Like this is a thematic bent that we can exploit that is missing from the RPG space. So let's explore that. Let's see where we can take it. And now we have player classes where the magical properties of your belches can shake the floor under your enemies and knock them over. Or if you're one of our smell casting classes, you can use the power of your farts to fly off, to hover above the air and fly and stuff.
I know people that this game is very, very much for. Oh, it's incredible.
Amazing. So, you talked earlier about doing with Terrible Games and stuff, wanting to kind of marry the ideas of board game play and like RPG play together, which I love. It's one of my favorite ways to play things, because I don't have a whole lot of time outside of the work that I do to sit down and set up a game. And so whenever I get a chance to like open up either, and it could go either way, a TTRPG or a board game, and them to have the very like quick relational setup, right? To help me along and like play, for me that has become like one of my favorite experiences. So you did that with Black Mold a bit. For Repugnant, do you have any kind of like board gaming mechanics, inspired mechanics for this game, or are you leaning more in towards the traditional TTRPG space for it?
I guess the one thing that we're doing with the D6 system is it's a little bit more expressed, because through interpretation using the D2 covered in shit system and the determination table, there are points of improvisation and collaboration between the GM and the players that are loosely imposed, without having there's not like firm guardrails on the way that works. With the D6 system, it is a little bit more firm, where it almost turns into an action economy. So like you're rolling all the, like I almost got through the explanation, but let me just wrap up on the mechanical thing really quickly. So each of your stats is called scuzz, and your maximum scuzz is the most number of units you can have in that attribute. And anytime you want to do something extra, like add a die or add a D2 chit to a challenge, you can remove 1 point of that resource in order to add additional dice. Additionally, there are special abilities that you have because of your mutation or your kinship that say stuff like spend 1 muscles and you fart so loudly that it deafens everyone near you, right?
Yeah.
But the way you regain these things is by resting and stuff. And in the improvisational part of the D6 system, there are symbols that do things that are supposed to loosely parallel what happens with the D2 stuff. So there's like a Mr. Yuck that makes it so that you get 2 points towards the check, but you have to take on a gag reflex, which is a bad thing that you optionally choose to take on. So it's like make one of your party members vulnerable, or spend one of your scuzz points and do a thing that explains why this works. There's also the droplet symbol, which is like snot coming out of your nose, which you can use it as 1 point towards the check, or you can embellish the action you're doing, making it as disgusting as possible. And if you gross out the GM and the other players, you're able to double the value of another die you have.
I love it.
Thank
Incredible.
you.
It's like it's like you really get that like social gamey side of it aside from just the game mechanic.
Yes, exactly. And it's supposed to create more of a compromise / improvisational relationship with the GM and the players where they're both kind of playing off of each other. And then the third symbol is the splatter symbol, which is just like this puddle. And that just allows you to re-roll that die or re-roll another die of your choice. So like if you're tossing a bunch of dice with this system, you could get the outcome you want. That's just like, okay, the check is 7 for me to deal 2 damage to this monster, and I rolled a 7. Great, it happens. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with a gag reflex, which is the GM visiting you with like weird choices, or you're going to improvise something where you have to use your imagination to dial up the outcome to the value that you want. So I view that as loosely board gamey, only because like there is an action economy that you're making critical choices about in the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, it reminds me of like those more, I don't know, I hesitate to say this because it could sound like an insult, but like the Cards Against Humanity kind of like vibe of like, like I did the funniest thing and that was like the game mechanic, but like you get to marry that, which is a very easy tonal like touchstone of like, oh, I understand the social contract of this game, and then marrying that with the RPG side of like the improv and having fun and doing crazy stuff. Like, I think that it's doing a really fun thing that's also accessible because we have had those experiences, but just in very different ways.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I hope that anybody who gets to the table enjoys it. And what I found is that especially the gag reflexes are interesting because they count towards 2 points towards the task you want, which is like the largest amount you can get from a natural roll. So players make interesting decisions when they get it because the GM like just tosses something at them, and we provide some examples of things you can throw at the players in the supplement booklet. But you can really get creative, and it can sort of like spin the adventure into these weird directions. That can be a lot of fun.
Very cool. This is going to launch on Tuesday, February 11th, maybe.
Yeah,
that's the plan for now.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I'm very excited about it. I'm limited this year on everything that I'm able to back, which is kind of a bummer because last year I was able to just go wild with it.
Oh my gosh!
But this one is definitely on my watch list for projects that I'm going to back because my Monday night group would love this because they're a bunch of dirty old fools, which they're not old, but still, if they're listening, don't worry. I know you guys aren't old, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the silliness and the grossness and the unhingedness of it. You take games where people like are meant to play seriously and they always go the wrong direction with it, and you have 20 joke characters. So what I'm very excited about is to present this game to my players and for them to take it so seriously. And I know they're going to take it so seriously because of course, like, it's going to be the opposite of like the tone. And it's going to create the most beautiful campaign because of it.
Everybody's weeping by the end and just like the most dramatic moments ever. Just because your players control you.
Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. If you promise to get it to the table, I'll send you guys a complimentary copy just for having me on the show and being a supporter and stuff. So like, I understand what things are like right now, but if you say you're gonna get it in front of your group and you run a session or two, like, I'm happy to send you guys a copy for having me on the show today.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. We love also just like being able to do demos with creators and stuff too. So it might be tight to pull it off in the middle of the month, but like I would love to play a game of this, even if you'd be willing to do one. We could like record and put that thing out on YouTube or something.
Yeah, we've got the people.
Absolutely.
Who would be perfect.
The carnival the carnival, it's a one shot right now, but I think for the campaign, I actually want to drum it up. I'm gonna do like an amusement park style map of the carnival,
Yeah.
and then also like just flesh it out a little bit more and actually provide it as a playable module for anybody who backs the campaign at the end as sort of a thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as taking it seriously, like I did some stuff with the supplement that I think is going to be kind of cool. There's this one mutation that's called a fungal, and basically they're like these blood mages almost, where they have these like spongy, those sponges that you put in the bottom of plants that when you push your finger into them, they just kind of go, and they're really wet.
Yeah.
So picture like a big inflated suit of armor made of that, but it's all like food rot fungal mold.
Oh
okay?
my God.
And it's growing on your body, and it emits these harmful spores that they control with like magic. Okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the mold armor they're wearing that's like protecting them, so when they get punched, they like a bunch of spores fire out and hurt their enemies. It's also actively like degrading their physical body. So we built this mechanism into it where you can like build up your meat stat way higher than its maximum, but if your meat stat isn't below the maximum at the end of the session, you forego leveling up and don't gain any XP.
Oh man.
So like
that's cool.
It's a little give and take kind of thing, and I'm just like all the stuff in the supplement is all like magic users.
Yeah.
But we're paralleling some stuff that people will be familiar with as far as like player archetypes and like min-maxing character builds and stuff like that. But the system is like super duper simple because it's like small numbers, and you're like, okay, well, my muscle scuzz is 4, so I roll 4 dice anytime I want to lift something up. So it's pretty easy.
What's the what's the grossest thing you've made for this game? Like what was the depths of yourself that you like even were worried about what just came out of you?
I'm gonna show you on the camera. It's a monster. It's this thing. This is called the ball spit. All right. Now I'm gonna read. Like, can I just read you guys the flavor text? Okay. You smell the ball spit long before you spot its bloated, saggy carcass slithering through the sludge. This revolting, rot-riddled monstrosity lumbers along with 6 slimy, spindly limbs, dragging its massive maw filled with jagged, gunky teeth. What's worse, inside that gaping gob are fleshy, mucus-drenched orbs covered in sticky, hair-like fibers. Disgusting disease bombs just waiting to be launched. The ball spit can throw its balls at your face from 6 school buses away with disarming accuracy and power. When hurled, these horrid orbs splat against anything they hit, usually sticking like flung boogers and oozing infectious slime. Burst one, brace yourself for a blast of bacteria. Then it waits. It waits as you gradually sicken and weaken, looming not too far as you rot from the inside out. Once you're too weak to walk, it lurches up and wraps its scabby limbs around you and slurps you up whole, savoring every last squirm. Stuffed and sluggish, the ball spit buries itself under the trash, digesting for hours while cooking up a fresh batch of odorous orbs before it hunts again.
That's wild.
Flesh,
Oh
kiddie
my
pool
gosh.
with scabby spider arms that throws hair-covered mucus sacs at you.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
It's gross,
That's
right?
awesome. Man, oh
Thank you.
gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was
Like-
beautiful. That was poetry.
Thank you.
Genuinely.
The reason I was cagey about, I actually talked to a couple of my partners and friends in Terrible Games. I was like, is this over the line? And they were like, I don't know, man.
What is the
'Cause-
line anymore?
Well,
Yeah.
the reason is because there's like, it's a scrotum that's not attached to
Right,
anything
yeah.
that has like pubes all over
Yeah.
it, and you get hit in the face with it. Like, it's humiliating.
Yeah.
And like one of it, like in the game, instead of there being like zoomed in, super specific, detailed explanations of mechanical stuff. We have what's called tags, where the GM just infers what it is, and one of the moves that it has is called mollywop. And like, interpret that as you will.
What could that be? So this game's for what, like 5 to 8-year-olds,
yeah.
or
I honestly think that like around 11 would probably be okay.
Yeah,
content-wise.
definitely.
Yeah, 11 or 12 is probably okay.
I don't know if I can let my son yet lean into his deepest, most grossest things, because he's already there.
Yeah.
Oh man,
But
that's great.
you know, thank you. Yeah, not everything is like that
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, there's simple stuff like the diarrhea bats.
yeah,
You know,
normal stuff.
Totally textbook RPG stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's the stuff my kid comes up. He's like, "Dad, you're a diaper." I'm like, "Nice, that was great, buddy. Thanks." Oh man, well this is so cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your Zine Quest experience in the past, and like what are you doing this time around? I know you're doing quite a bit when it comes to like little different versions of it and SKUs and things like that. So what do you got this year for us at Zine Quest?
So we're doing the 3rd edition reprint of the Repugnant Core rule booklet, which has now been blown up into a big magazine-sized aspect ratio. So instead of it being a little 5x7 zine, it's a bigger book. Me and Tony went through it and made a bunch of like quality of life edits to make sure that people were able to onboard the D2 system a little bit easier and clear up a little bit of mechanical stuff that we had gotten feedback from in the past, specifically the fact that the points of the triangle also function as points in the game, like in the abstract. There was some language that was a little unclear.
Okay.
And then with that, we had done a Kickstarter exclusive like backer perk for the first campaign where we offered this like menu pamphlet pizza problems module that was only like a free gift. So that's going to be included with the core rule booklet, as well as a punch sheet of the D2s and the determination table called the heap, and a character sheet and a double-sided 11x17 map. So most of that stuff came with the original version, but there's a couple exclusive from the first campaign that we're just bundling in. And then we're doing the Spoilage and Scrap supplement, which is a standard like saddle stapled zine. It's 40 pages. It's got 20 new monsters, 3 new kinship and mutations. It comes with the sticker sheet that lets you alter D6s so you can do the D6 system. And then it also has what I'm calling a spit and tear character sheet, which is it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet that is folded in half and has 2 character sheets on each side. I don't know if you ever did this when you were a kid. If you didn't have scissors, you'd like fold it and then you lick it and you can rip it in half. So there's that.
Dang.
And then so both of those are being offered. Then we're gonna have a digital bundle with everything for people who don't want to spring for physical rewards. But here's the thing. If you spring for any physical reward, you will get what's called a random rubbish exclusive Kickstarter backer perk, which is going to be either a 2.5-inch diameter custom button or around a 2.5 to 3-inch by 3-inch sticker.
Nice.
Sweet.
And some pledges will get one of each, and that'll be randomized. So you don't know what of them you're going to get, but for every physical product you back, you'll get one of the random rubbish items. There's 4 of them. And then I have some stuff planned if we like fun, like not like crazy, but basically like every time we do another 2Gs over our ask, I'm just going to like throw something out to the backers and be like, what do you think about me adding this?
Right.
And we'll go from there. Like, I don't really like doing like stretch goals because it just seems so premeditated and like I have ideas for stuff that I would add if we fund more than we need. But I'm not going to like trot it out as a dangling carrot because I just don't. I don't really
Helps
vibe
keep
with
the
it.
scope down and manageable too. Like Andrew and I both, definitely with our first project, we're like,
we did more than we should have.
we want to do this, if we want to throw that on there and everything, and it was just like, oh boy.
I've got I was listening to Brain Trust, Will Yobst and Adam Vass, and Will's actually editing on my next project, and I was talking to Will as well, and they basically just iterated so many times, like, if you think of a stretch goal in the middle of your campaign, no, you didn't.
It's too late. Yeah.
It's too late for ideas. But man, I think that like I am so attracted to cool components and stuff, and like as somebody that makes RPGs, it's like I always want to not get too focused on that because I want people to always be able to play and stuff. And I love the way that like having stickers instead of like you need these specific dice and like having, you know, printable options and stuff like that makes the accessibility of it so much better, which is where I focused my personal efforts. But man, I got to pick your brain sometime about like, getting tokens printed and like the board game component side of stuff. Cause I have so many ideas that involve components and component design that I tend to just kind of shirk away from because I'm like, I can do art on an art book and I know how that works in the production side of it. But then like I go to quote like board game pieces and it's like, through the roof or some shady website or something. So,
I mean, you don't have to pick my brain. That's an easy fix. There's a number of manufacturers based out of China who are willing to take on clients for small quantity runs.
yeah.
Yeah, usually you need to hit like the 500 unit mark, and it really depends on what you're trying to make. But if it's made of paper, it's going to be pretty affordable.
Yeah.
Like, I think we put up like $400 to get like 500 of the punchboard D2 chipboards.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
not
Which
bad
is
at
like
all.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can find certain manufacturers. The thing that people don't understand about manufacturing in China is that not only are they good at it and have the infrastructure to do it well, the reason it's cheap is because there isn't one humongous factory that has
Yeah.
all of the mechanical and logistical capabilities to make every single component under the sun. Roughly 60 to 70% of the stuff that you get made is contracted out to another like niche provider. So if it's custom dice, if it's punchboard pieces, if it's a board, larger board game publishers or manufacturers can cover a lot of the components. But if there's little things that they just don't have, they usually have somebody in their back pocket they contract out for stuff. So you find those guys that just make punchboard stuff.
You cut them
and
out.
you're like, cool.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, can you just do this one thing for me?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel you though. It's also because each of those things are having all these components. I learned this with Black Mold. Like, that's probably going to be the biggest game we ever make because it's got so many fucking things in it. Like, it's easy to get lost and miss stuff because you are just tracing so many threads to make the entire package work.
Right.
That like, especially with a small team like ours, it can be rough to keep track of everything. So I understand. I totally understand where you're coming from.
Well, because like I remember even with last year's Zine Quest product, when I was picking and packing everything myself, it was like I had the regular book, I had the deluxe cover version of it, I had the signed version of it. So now I have 4 SKUs because they both could be signed. Now the list like grew so quickly when I was like, I don't have that many things, but now I have like 8 SKUs which can create a million permutations of the type of orders that I'm picking. And it was just like, I can't imagine getting into components.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that also plays to like this mistake that a lot of creators make early on. And I did the same thing with our first campaign for Token Terrors, is trying to please everybody instead of just making it easy. Like going forward, like as a rule, I don't want to offer more than 3 pledged reward tiers ever.
Yeah.
And yeah, the only reason we're doing we're doing 3 with Repugnant is because core rule booklet, supplement by itself if you already have the core book, and then the bundle of both of those things, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I just as far as components go, like, yeah, this one's doing a little bit, but like I sourced the stickers from a US based company. I got the books printed by a US based company. A lot of that stuff, like quick turnover and being able to have communication is like a huge hurdle when it comes to manufacturing overseas. So it's, if you can figure out how to do it domestically, like absolutely, especially if it's not too bad as far as cost. Which if you're doing like Printivity or Mixum, it's like fairly affordable.
Yeah,
so it's not too bad.
Definitely. Well, this is dope. I'm so excited about this game. I've been, I said, I've been obsessed with your work for a bit from a distance, and I'm excited to jump into it. I hope you have the best campaign, and it is extremely successful. It's been wild seeing out there how people are funding already, and it's been a cool month so far. So hopefully we can have you back on soon, so we can play some Repugnant and get nasty together.
Yeah.
And
also,
yeah.
I wanted to congratulate you on funding your campaign. I took a look and saw that, and I want to wish DJ the best of luck on his. I'll be there to support in some way if I can. And also, I wanted to mention something. You had talked about how Volca was the first thing that sort of brought you over to us. I wanted to clarify. I did not actually do the artwork on that one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Volca was done by Brooke Penrose, who is both the game's designer, creator, and artist. Basically, I recognized exactly what you said, which is that the artwork was sick and does a thing, and was like, if you've never published anything before, you don't know about independent board game publishing, I want to be your guy because I fuck with this.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And basically, I just brought it up to snuff as far as like hobby gaming and making sure it was gamed up.
Yeah.
I did have a couple ideas that ended up getting some original artwork added to the game, which I'm very proud of. But I just wanted to clarify credit where due that I did not do the artwork.
Credit where
on
it's
that.
due.
Absolutely.
That's
John,
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys have some seriously cool games,
Yeah.
and everybody should check out Terrible Games.
That's what I was going to ask next. Where can they find you? Where can they find Terrible Games? And of course, the Kickstarter is going to be linked down below with all of this as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah. So you can find us at tokenterrors.com. TerribleGames.info for whatever reason sometimes acts kind of weird, but tokenterrors.com is good. And then at Terrible Games on TikTok and Token Terrors on Instagram. And for the time being, I still exist on Facebook, but I feel like that's going to be not much longer. Instagram maybe same, but we're going to see. I'm on Blue Sky also under Terrible Games.
Yep.
But the best way to interact with us is to go to the website at tokenterrors.com and just sign up for our mailing list.
Yeah.
Like, you sign up for a mailing list, you give agency to us, you only hear from us when we have something to say that's important, which is usually about once a month, sometimes less. And it's a great way to support us directly because we have like control over that ecosystem more than we do on social media where we have to like pay to be seen and communicate things to people.
Yep. Feel that.
Yeah.
Man.
Well,
awesome. Well, we will we'll get our people over there and check out this Kickstarter. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. And you guys can look forward to a lot more coverage of Zine Quest, Zine Month as a whole, and all the cool things that are going on in the community. You can see all of those links below, as well as our link to oneshotstavern.com. DJ, am I missing anything else?
I don't think so. Just follow us.
Awesome.
We also left a ton of places recently. We're on Blue Sky. We're on TikTok. And I think that's it.
For now.
For now.
But yeah, you can get everything over at oneshotstavern.com. Check out Out of Orbit. It's still funding. Every dollar that goes towards that game is just going to make it better and bigger and cooler. Similar to Tony, I'm not doing any crazy stretch goals, but it will make the book better, and it lets me justify more time working on it. Thank you all for being here at One Shot Tavern. John, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll go there.
See you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.
Appreciate it. Later.